Welcome back to another episode of the One Tree Hill Rewatch here on the Filmaholic channel. Today we're going to be talking about two episodes in Season 6, which is 604 and 605, so let's jump right into it. 604 is called Bridge Over Troubled Water, and then originally aired September 22nd, 2008, and was directed by Paul Johansson. So it's obviously a well-directed episode, and it was written by Terrence Colley. So the big part of this, one of the big things about this episode, I think, is that Deb and Skills have came out to Nathan and how Nathan responds to that. He's obviously very upset. First, they came out at the funeral, but also the age difference and how Deb's been acting. But Deb's always been wacky, so we knew. So you should suspect this type of behavior from her. But she comes out to Nathan about Skills, so he asks her to move out, and there's like a bunch of different stuff with them, and Skills talks to Haley about it and all of this. And how Nathan is dealing with it. But by the end of the episode, especially after talk with Jamie, because Jamie's cool with it, Nathan ends up being okay about it and tells Deb that he would like her to move back in because he kicked her out. So that's a big part of the overlining thing of the episode. And then Skills ends up helping Nathan to work on his game and practicing for the next couple episodes of trying to make his comeback, which is nice. And I kind of wish they had focused more on that in this season. Obviously, Nathan goes on to not necessarily needing help from other people because of the slam ball situation and then the other league after that, and we'll get into it. But I would have actually liked to see more with him and Skills working on their game now that Cuba's out of the picture and just building their relationship, because we don't get enough really of Nathan and Skills and their relationship, I don't think. I mean, we get bits and pieces of it, but I think really you could have made that stronger throughout the series if you had focused on them really playing basketball together. I think that would have been awesome. Deb sees Carrie in this episode. She goes to the park and is thinking about everything that's going on with Nathan and Jamie and everything, and she runs into Carrie there, who's just creeping around, which this plays into the next episode, really. I think this is the main reason that scene was there, was that she would recognize Carrie. So we have that. Jamie wants to see Dan in this episode, and with everything that happened with Quentin, Haley feels bad about it, so she ends up taking Jamie over to the Dan's beach house. Well, Dan's house now, because he lives there. But she takes him over there, and there's all these newspapers, and it looks like no one's been home for a while, and no one's coming to the door. But then she realizes the door is unlocked, so she makes Jamie go wait in the car as she goes inside and looks around. Which I really like this moment, too, because it goes more into the fact that she is part of Dan's life. They are family regardless of everything that's happening, and you see that in like moments like this, that is taking her taking on the responsibility of checking in on him and seeing, is he dead, what's happening, and then she ends up calling the doctor to get updates, and at the end of the episode she finds out that there was a heart for him and he didn't show up for it. So Nathan's like, I guess he really has went off to die, because she tells Nathan about everything too. Which, one thing that bugs me about this is that when she tells Nathan on this, he doesn't really seem to care all that much. And that bothers me, especially because I think, I don't know, I wasn't in the making process, obviously, so I don't know like what Mark had in his head, what other writers had in their head, what James Lafferty had in his head. But despite what was on the page and how Nathan was supposed to react, I think there should have been a conversation between Mark and James Lafferty where, well, the other writers too, of Nathan should act a certain way because he's expected to act that a certain way. And I've mentioned this before, is I think part of how Nathan reacts is a response to Lucas, and the fact that Lucas expects Nathan not to have Dan be a part of his life because Dan killed Keith, and all of that. It makes sense. All that makes sense in terms of Lucas's character, definitely. But I just wish they had read a little bit differently as far as the Nathan stuff and how he reacts to certain things, especially because he's just really not that invested. He's told Dan that he's not going to be a part of his life. So you have that, but honestly, in this episode and the next, especially this one, I feel like Haley cares more than Nathan does, which is, and that's primarily, and it should be, in response to how Jamie's going to react. to Dan dying and them being kind of selfish. And Haley brings it up that she feels selfish about not letting Jamie see Dan, and that it's all true. I believe that is being selfish of them. So we have that. Brooke goes to counseling. It's the same therapist that or counselor that Haley and Nathan went to for marriage counseling. So Brooke goes to her, which she also appeared in 16 Candles when she was younger. If you've seen that film, she was a big part of that. And she talks to her, and she talks about Victoria, and she talks about all these different things, which is nice. And then the episode ends with Brooke going to New York, taking that gun that she has now, and confronting Victoria, not by like gunpoint, but she puts the gun down on the table and confronts Victoria. First, that she thinks that Victoria is the one that hired the person to attack her, and Victoria's like, I would never physically hurt you, which is important on so many levels. First, that she had to emphasize physically, because she would definitely hurt her in other ways, but never physically. But also that she wouldn't hurt her daughter in a physical way. So, and that scene is pretty good for Brooke's understanding of Victoria and understanding that character too, and especially given that we're going to be getting more redemption sort of arc. They don't ever they do a good job with Victoria, I think, because they always, and this is sort of like this with Dan too, is they always stay true to the character. So even when they redeem her by the end of the season, in terms of Brooke's eyes, of her being there, being a mother to Brooke, and moving forward in the series, which she does, in season 8 and other moments too, they never separate who she is and how she would react to certain situations, which is key, because if you go and start making her act differently, then you're like, well, this whole character was a sham, like she can have this redeeming arc and make these good decisions in terms of Brooke and their relationship, but she still is that same character, that same Victoria, and that's important. Mick Wolf's also introduced in this episode, who we obviously know turns out to be Peyton's dad. He comes in this episode, which was kind of teasing in the last season that Mia had seen somebody on tour who knew Ellie, and that's brought up, and he's apparently some famous musician that had his own music, but then also has played with other people as well. And he comes in and goes to a basketball game with Peyton, and it really sets up this 3-episode arc with his character and introducing us to Peyton's biological dad in this season, which then carries over to the next episode, and the last episode I'm going to talk here today, and that is 605. You've dug your own grave, now lie in it. And this episode is incredible. I think it's probably my top. Maybe my top 5 episodes of this season. I have to think about it. I know it's not in the top 3. But yeah, it's in my top 5. Probably my 4th or 5th favorite episode of this season. It's really good. It was directed by John Asher. This is his final episode. He directed 7 episodes, but this is his final one. And it's written by William H. Brown, who we know writes a lot of episodes for the show. And the main thing about this episode is that it's Carrie's showdown. It's Carrie's final episode, played by Tori DeVito. Final episode in the series, and it's everything that's happened with her and Dan in the season that's led up to it, and including him getting hit by the car in the end of the last season, as well as everything with her character in season 5 and Haley and everything, and Jamie. All of this comes to a head in this episode, and the fact that she calls Haley and tells Haley that Dan's in hospice and gives an address for her to come visit and take Jamie. Which Haley's going to do because she feels bad about everything that's happened with Jamie and Quentin, and the fact that Jamie hasn't been able to see Dan. So she, thinking that Dan is dying and can't get a hold of Nathan, because Nathan, go segue into that real quick, is on what he thinks is an interview for him joining a basketball team, a D-League basketball team, but in fact it's them wanting him to be a coach, which pretty much I think offends him, because he, you didn't mention this, and it offends him that you expect him to give everything up and be a coach when he really still has stuff left in him to be a player. But this will tie into his other stuff throughout the season, because that guy who is doing the interview with him is definitely coming back in future episodes and ends up working with Nathan on this team. And we'll get to that when we get to it. But that's really Nathan's stuff in this episode, other than him calling Haley on the phone in that moment. And then you also have the stuff with Lucas in this episode. Lucas has to go into New York to have a meeting about his book, The Comet, with Lindsay. first time he's seen Lindsay since the season 5 finale. She doesn't know anything about the marriage or the wedding proposal, whatever you have with Peyton. So he has to go deal with that, and he wants to tell her at the beginning, but then she's eager to get into this meeting. They go to the meeting, and they have these these book tour dates, and apparently they have a date already set for their wedding, which obviously isn't the date they end up having, because one, they say in this episode that there's a church, they're going to have a church wedding, which doesn't end up happening, we know. And also, they say that, well, anyways, they end up having to switch his Chicago book date, which to me, I don't know when. It would seem like that would be pretty soon, which we know this would probably be this episode would be somewhere in the summer of 2011, their wedding, and when they end up leaving the show, we get to that, is at the end of sometime in April of 2012, because it's 14 months before the season 7 opener, which is in June 2013. So little timeline there for you. Anyways, he ends up coming. He's got to switch these dates. She gets upset, takes him to the other room. Like, what is so important? Do you have to switch the Chicago date? And he's like, I'm getting married. It's to Peyton. And so then, this is her last episode. Lindsay, they have a scene later in a bar where there's like just their little, and it's a nice little scene of them saying goodbye. And then he ends up opening the book, the comment that she gave him, the copy, and a little note left from her in there, which, by the way, it just, like, especially being a fan of the show, like, there's so much, like, first of all, I wish I could read Ravens, even though we've pretty much already seen it, because it's Lucas's point of view of the high school years of the show. Would have been nice to read that, and also would have been nice to read the comment. Even though it sounds less interesting than Ravens, the way he describes this is about a scientist looking at the stars. So why on the cover of his book does Lindsay put the river court? I don't understand. Did the scientist go to this river court? Is the river court in the book? Or is that just something that she liked to put on the cover? That's supposed to be a look inside Lucas's life, the author, versus anything to do with the actual novel. I don't know. But that's the end of Lindsay's character. Peyton's also dealing with Mick in this episode, more developing. He ends up kind of slipping in the episode about Ellie, giving her more backstory, but also slipping that he is the father. But he doesn't come out and tell her this. And instead, they plan to have this dinner at the end of the episode that he ends up not coming to and doesn't show. And that was the dinner he was supposed to pretty much tell her that he was his father. Instead, he goes to a bar and gets drunk, drops this little sober chip onto the bar, and tells the bartender to shut up and just pour, which Mick is another character in the show that I'm like, I think it was smart to bring him in, actually, for this 3-episode arc. I liked it because that's a situation where we don't know her biological father, and I'm glad that we got to see her biological father and understand that. But they don't make him redeeming. They don't have a redemption to him, even though you kind of feel good, and then it was the right thing for him to leave by the time that he leaves in the next episode, with her calling Larry and everything. And it all works out, but you don't make him a redeeming character. You don't have a situation where he's like a good guy or anything. He's like, he is who he is. He's a shitty person. And it's good that he gave her up. I wish they'd done the same thing with Brooke's dad in season 9. And we'll get to that when we get to it, but they don't. So then all that different stuff's happening. Deb kind of foreshadows season 9 in a sense when she's talking to Haley about Dan. I'm not gonna get too much into that in this one, because I don't know. I don't want to be overheard. No spoilers for Sarah, as far as that goes. But Deb kind of foreshadows that, and Haley takes Jamie to see Dan. There's this. Dan's also got stubble in this episode. He looks really cool when he has the stubble. But there's this awesome scene with him and Carrie where he's just It's interesting to see sides of Dan like this, because he's trying to beg with Carrie to begin with of, please you don't have to do this. And she's like, where's that macho guy who threatened to kill me? And he's like, it just like snaps back into who he really is after he like knocks that wave of that acting off. And he's like, you'll get to see him if you ever touch, if you touch a hair on Jamie's head. It's incredible. And then she puts the shot into him to knock him out. which is when Haley shows up, and Dan can't speak, and then Carrie hits Haley over the head and runs after Jamie. And there's this really good scene with them running through the cornfield. John Asher did a really good job in this of making this very much of like a horror movie and like a just thriller and building that suspense in that cornfield and these shots of her running after Jamie, and then ends up Haley, recovers, runs out there and grabs Jamie, and then they run back, and then Carrie runs after them, and then boom, Deb appears with the wine bottle and knocks Carrie out. Let's go back a little bit. Remember, Deb saw the picture of Carrie. That's why she ended up coming to the house where Dan was supposed to be, and she saw Carrie in the last episode. Deb did, so she started connecting the dots. I love this moment. I love this episode. One thing I don't love, and makes no sense to me, one, that she brings the wine bottle and knocks Carrie out with the wine bottle, because she has a gun, so I don't know why she didn't just bring that instead of a wine bottle. Now, of course, if she had brought the gun, you wouldn't have the epic moments with Dan. So, but going back to the wine bottle, the scene where she gets the wine bottle and it's tucked into a cabinet, she grabs it out, it's got dust all over it, and then she says later, "I've been saving this for the day I was going to get rid of Dan Scott for good." This isn't your house. This isn't your house you've had since that was in the high school years. What I don't understand the situation with that wine bottle. And not only is it not your house, you just moved in, like, the episode, it was 14, the episode before Jamie's birthday, and Jamie's birthday was in June, which was 15. So this at most could have been like May when she moved into the house with them. So the bottle's been up there since May. Or are you saying that she visited and put that bottle of wine up there when they bought the house? Even that would be like, I don't know, like not more than a year, probably 2 years ago. I don't know, that just like bugged me. I don't understand why the bottle was covered in dust, or why her bottle of wine that she was saving for the day that she was rid of Dan Scott for good had been at Maylee's house. But anyways, she ends up bringing it, knocks Carrie out. And overall, I like that scene. I like when she hits her in the head. And then Carrie jumps back up afterwards. She's not dead. And Dan shoots her in the stomach. And he says, "God, I hate the woods." Hilarious. I love that line, and it was a great scene in general. And then we get into the ending music of everything wrapping up, and we see these different shots of Nick not showing up, and then the Lindsay stuff with Lucas and Nathan on that basketball court, and the lights go out, and you're like, is his career really over? But then we get to the last shot of the episode, which is my favorite shot in the episode, favorite little scene, and that is that Carrie wakes up again. She's still not dead. The ambulance is on the way. Cops are on the way. She's like, "I'm going to get out of prison. I'll come back," and all this. And he says, Dan says, "Do you remember the thing? What I told you?" And she's like, "You said you'd kill me." And then she says, "I'm not dead." He's like, "Sure you are." And he shoots her right in the face. Her character's not coming back. Yeah, she's a goner. And it was just an epic little moment that I love, because it's like Dan is true to his word and don't fuck with him. But yeah, really good episode, I thought. One of my favorites in the season. Let me know your thoughts on it. Did you really like the episode? And what do you think of the first 5 episodes of the season 6? Next episode, I'm going to be talking about 2 episodes. That'll be 606 and 607. And then we get into towards the mid-season finale, Julian coming in, all that. It's really exciting. All right, guys, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys next time.